Mukwenda, thank you so much for joining this podcast. This is the Creative Collection podcast. I just want to jump right in, something practical. One of the things that you talk about is building business God's way. And so let's talk about why it is important to build business God's way.
When I think about building business God's way, the reality is this, like, you can build business technically without God. You don't have to do it God's way. That's good. Well, one, I'm super excited to be part of the Creative Collection and just join in the conversation. I've been inspired by you from afar, just all the stuff you're doing. But scripture talks about in Proverbs 10, the blessing of the Lord makes a man rich and he adds no sorrow to it. And so what I found, and I found a lot of people that were in my circle or business colleagues, they had earthly success, but it also came with earthly sorrow. And I didn't want that. I believe God has better. And so his way is very specific. And we teach on 5 pillars as far as my company. We have podcasts, we do events, and we teach on 5 pillars. We teach on being spirit led, having good stewardship, humility, integrity, generosity. Those are the 5 things that we believe makes up someone that actually builds God's way. And ultimately, you're building with God. And so it's going to lead you to do some things that may seem contrary to how everyone else is telling you to build. But you're not just building to make money. One, you're building to make impact, but you're also building so you can protect your peace, so that you can live in joy and not earthly sorrow. And it's just some of the burdens that we take on that are ultimately, when you don't build God's way, yourself and other people around you are affected. One of the things that we teach a lot in our community is that God is not going to ordain something for you to do that's going to negatively impact the relationships and people around you. And so there's a lot of times where I've seen people build and what they put on the altar is their family. What they put on the altar are the relationships and people around them. And I mean, honestly, like, it's kind of taught, like, yeah, burn the ships if they
Right.
don't support you. And obviously, like, there's some practicalness to it, of course, right? We're not talking about the wrong people, but I've just often found that some of the people that are some of the best in business are poor and deficient when it comes to relationships. They're poor and deficient when it comes to their spiritual walk. They're poor and deficient when it comes to other parts of life. And God, when he thinks of wealth, he thinks of all of it, not just one part. There's a scripture that says, I wish above all things that you would prosper, be in health, even as your soul prospers. So
Amen.
you could be prospering financially in your business, but if those other areas are not prospering, God would not call you a success. And so really what it comes down to is you have to change the goal. You have to change the definition of what success is. I heard a pastor say once, the power to define is the power to fulfill. If I can't define it, I can't fulfill it. So part of it's like, okay, what does godly success look like? And to me, it looks like leaving impact on generations that come after you. It looks like you spiritually thriving and your relationships thriving. And so those are some of the things that we talk about a lot
Yeah.
when it comes to building God's way.
No, that's good. That's good. I really like those. I think that's important. If you're building business but your relationships are suffering, then you're doing it the wrong way. I've always said
Yes.
that, especially as a husband. I'm married. I have 2 kids. And it's if you're single, this is what I tell single people. If you're single, do whatever you can now, because when you get married, your time is going to dwindle a little bit. And then when you throw kids into that, it's even going to dwindle a little bit more. And
A lot
so,
more, yeah.
yeah, so whatever you could do now,
Yeah.
practically to build your business, to spend time with God, to spend, like, when I was single, I spent hours with God, just like praying in the middle of the night, fasting and things like that. It's a little harder to do that now, but it's still possible. So you talked about the 5 pillars that you guys talk about, Faith Hustle, your business, Faith Hustle Network, your community as well. And
Yes.
I want to ask, is that the same practical steps and application that you would tell someone on how to build, business God's way, or do you have different steps for that? Let's take a quick break from the conversation. If you're a business owner or a creative entrepreneur and you're trying to grow with video, then this is for you. At Creative Collection, we help people build brands with video, but not just throwing up content for content's sake. We focus on the difference between your brand, which is what people say about you, your branding, which is what you're communicating, your strategy, which is the engine, and then the video content that brings it all together. So if you're just throwing up videos without any real strategy behind them, let's help you create one. And if you are needing to build a brand with video, we offer consultations to help you map that out. So click the link below and book a consultation. And if you're enjoying the episode so far and it's helped you, make sure you subscribe, share it with someone, and drop a comment with the favorite part of the episode. So let's get back to it.
So I'd say, there's some lessons that I've learned over time. And funny enough, last year was just such a huge year for us as far as Faith Hustle. We started our podcast on 2024, and it was amazing. And we were trying to figure out like what's kind of the next step. And so we kind of stumbled last year, 2025, into doing events. Just felt led on my heart that that's what we were supposed to do. To be honest, like I didn't know why we were doing it, where it was going, but like we were just packing out venues and with Christian entrepreneurs and content creators who wanted to network together. We did live podcasts with people who've been on the show before, just giving their wisdom and guidance, and it was unbelievable. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Like where is this going? And in the summer, I go to Florida and I'm praying, and I feel God tell me like, "Hey, your next step is you're gonna do a tour." And I was like, "I don't know how to do a tour. I've never done one before." He was like, "I didn't ask you that. I told you to just to trust me." And so I learned some few lessons from that really helped me. So the one thing that we teach our community, and some of the lessons that I learned from that experience, is that you need a God-sized vision. A God-sized vision requires God. A vision that you can accomplish on your own, like where God gets involved is when it's a God-sized vision, where it's like there's no way this can happen without him. So for us, doing a tour, a 5-city tour, felt impossible. We didn't have the resources, nor did we have the teams. We didn't have, the partnerships and the know-how. I didn't know how to do it. I felt in my heart we're supposed to do it, and I felt like we're supposed to build wells in West Africa, and it had always been on my heart. And so we just took steps of faith, and it was very challenging, but God met us, and God met us because it was a God-sized vision. It was birthed from Him, and one thing that we say is a God-sized vision breeds God-sized momentum. And we got an incredible partnership with a very large Christian bank here in Texas that set us up to do it. And we had hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs come to the events. And we raised enough money to build 7 clean water wells.
Nice.
And 32 people gave their lives to Christ. And it was just unbelievable. And now we're in talks with like 3 different organizations that are basically like, "Hey, what do you have planned? Because we want to help back you for this year and the coming years." And I'm like, had I not had a God-sized vision, I would have stayed small and stuck. And so I think that's super practical for all of us. So like, okay, here's what you think you can do. Now imagine what you could do when you bring God in the picture.
Right.
And now write that vision. Make that the goal. And it will stretch you. It will, because honestly, until I did that, I didn't realize what I had in me. Like I didn't realize my actual capacity. You don't know your capacity until a demand is put on it. And I think a lot of times we just kind of settle because no one's putting a demand on it. And so for me, I'm like, "Hey, God, what is possible? What are you wanting me to do that feels impossible for me?" That you're like, "Hey, if I'm just looking for someone to like say yes." And yeah, and so that's one of the things that we teach a lot. And another thing that as I'm kind of walking through this, I literally just did a whole episode about this, where we talked about these different lessons. The next one is faith doesn't require feelings; it requires movement.
That's good.
So I think a lot of times we tend to we're like waiting for a feeling to move, or we're like waiting for courage. We talked about this earlier of I think one of the challenges of creatives is procrastination. And I actually believe from a spiritual perspective, I think it's an actual tool and tactic of the enemy to keep us stuck. And it's usually it's not just, oh, we don't want to do it. It's more so like we're waiting for it to be perfect, or we're waiting on a feeling to validate our next move. And faith doesn't work like that. And like if you started a business at all, you know, like you won't always feel courage. You won't always feel it, but there's something powerful when you don't allow that to dictate how you move. The Bible talks about that He orders our steps. He doesn't order our ideas. He doesn't order our good intentions. He orders our steps. And so there's times that you just have to take a step forward. A perfect example of that, we were going to Nashville for one of our tour stops. Mind you, I had like only a few connections in Nashville. It didn't make sense at all. Like, why are we going to Nashville? But I felt God tell us we're supposed to go to Nashville. And so we went on the drive there. So we're driving Thursday. Friday is the event. We had only sold 20 tickets. And I'm like, God, come on. like, what is going on? But I was like, well, we're already in the car. It was a 12-hour drive. And I was like, no, you told us that this is going to happen.
Hmm.
Let's go. Let's just trust God. Somehow in less than 24 hours, we had a standing room only room.
Nice.
And we built a well in that city. 9 people gave their lives to Christ. I mean, so many people got connected, and we're going back there again next month. Like, and we're looking to probably double the size that was there. Like, if I was waiting for the feeling, I definitely did not have the feeling.
For sure.
but like there's sometimes like you just got to step.
Yep.
And I think especially as creatives, that's something that we can struggle with. And I hope that this year we can lock in of like, hey, we're not gonna wait for feelings to move. And the last thing I'll say is, and it kind of is related to faith, but you don't know if you don't go. Like I think, especially in the beginning times, and I listen, I'm all for market research, I'm all for good strategy, I'm all for all of that. I think sometimes we like to spend a lot of time ideating and like brainstorming and all this research and not move. And like I think the unknown scares us. But the reality is like um, I didn't know if we would have an audience in Houston. I
Hmm.
didn't know if people would show up. But we went, and hey, people showed up and our ads worked, and people were encouraged, and like they joined our network, and it's like, okay, so clearly this was here this whole time. I just had to kind of get out of my own head. And so hopefully this is encouraging, but I would say these are the big things that we're teaching our community.
Yeah.
Because honestly, there's always a new strategy. And I think we can obviously talk strategy, we could talk tactics, we could talk brand building and all this different stuff. But at the end of the day, like you you can ask chat for a great strategy. Doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
Right.
So, at some point, you gotta put from pen to paper, you gotta get your feet moving.
For sure. And that's good. Send me and I'll go. That's the
Yeah.
word of God. So it's like when he says go, go do that.
Yeah.
One of my God side's dreams that he's given me for years now is to build a creative school.
Come
And
on.
yeah, when that came in, I was like, what?
Yeah.
You want me to do what? Like I have no idea. But now I see glimpses of how that could be possible. I think it's like one of those things where I can't do it by myself. Absolutely no
Right.
way I could do it by myself. And there's times when I try to deviate from that, and like God is like, no, 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 no. This is what I'm
Mm-hmm.
calling you to do. Not that. It's like, I have a creative production side of the company, right? Where I produce videos for businesses and things like that. And so
Yeah.
it's typically easier to create something educational for businesses because I already have them as clientele. But what God is asking me to do on this other hand is for creatives.
Come on.
They also have businesses, they're creative entrepreneurs. But I try to build something on the educational side of things for businesses, and God was like, "That's not what I called you to do. Like, why are you spending your time, wasting your time doing that
Uh-huh.
when I've called you to do this?" And so,
Yeah.
like, when I truly started focusing on that, I just felt this release. Like, these are the people I'm called to, creatives.
Yeah.
And that's why, the podcast started. I'm an introvert at heart. I don't talk. Like, what am I doing hosting a podcast, And I felt like it was like, again, another gut side idea that, hey, go do this thing, and I just ran with it. And
I
the
love it.
fruit of the things that have come from that alone, man, I can't even speak about it. It's just so much. It's grand. And so, taking that step and taking those God-sized ideas and actually running with it.
Mhm.
Faith without works is dead. You could have the biggest
Yes,
faith, but if you don't do anything with it, nothing's gonna happen. And so,
absolutely.
like you said, ideas. Yes, you could have all the ideas, but if you don't put action into it, nothing's gonna happen. So,
Yeah.
for those creators listening, it's don't let your ideas consume you. Ideate, yes, but put action into the ideas and go do something with that, because you never know
Yes.
which one's gonna hit. You could
Yep.
have a million ideas, but if you don't do anything, nothing's gonna happen. It's until you start moving that things are gonna start moving with you and start happening. So, you've built a podcast, which I've watched, a couple of episodes. I've seen the clips on social. I've also been inspired from afar, from all the things that you've been doing, honestly. Like planning events, that's a headache in
Yes.
its own. And you've been able to you did 9 last year.
Yes.
So you've built a podcast, you've built a community, you're doing tours. You did 9 cities last year. And I think this year you mentioned you're doing about 10 or so. Um,
Uh, Tour wise, we're gonna announce it here soon, but yeah,
okay.
we're definitely gonna do double what we did last
Oh
year.
wow, okay. Double,
We have,
not 10, 18
yeah, yeah,
plus.
yeah, we have. Well, oh yeah, I mean, like as far as events total,
Yeah.
more than likely, yeah.
Okay.
The conversations that we're having, it's looking like I'm be doing a lot of events this year,
Yeah.
but I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Like the need is growing. Funny enough, I think even just in the life of brands, it seems like there's a return to in-person experiences
Mhm.
just across the board.
Mhm.
Like Capital One putting cafes all across America. It's like why are they getting the cafe business? Because they're trying to get in the people business and they're trying to build community.
Yeah.
And so we feel a real pull to it. And we got some great partners that see the vision. And so we got some really cool plans to build community and eventually build chapters out of of our network, and
Mhm.
where in different cities people can gather and network with other Christian business owners and content creators in their own city. And so that's definitely the goal moving forward. But yeah, man, we're gonna have more and more output this year.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. That's really cool to see, and I'm excited to, just watch from here and be a part of whatever it is you're doing as well. So, you've built a podcast, you've built a community. Let's talk about more strategy now. Strategy about building a podcast and how that evolved into a community, and then we'll come into more strategy about how someone could go about building a community. So let's talk podcast first. What were the
Okay.
things that you did, to start your podcast, to build your podcast, for anyone listening now that, they've been listening, thinking about starting a podcast, what is the steps to do that?
Yeah. No, I think one thing that helped me, my background is advertising, and so I, spent probably a decade studying brands, working with brands, learning what great brands do, and all these different things. I used to work with Chick-fil-A at an agency and did a bunch of different work. And for me, what I found is that a brand is definitely not a logo.
Mhm.
It's part of it. It's an expression of it, but a brand is, well, one, a feeling, and it's a centralized idea that everyone can get around,
Mm.
right? So I used to live in Michigan, and Jeep, their brand presence is strong in Michigan, and there are people, they are Jeep people. Like they take ownership. Hey, we are Jeep people. Same thing with Tesla people. Like people buy Teslas, they're all the same. They're all in the tech. They're all like got all the automation and all this different stuff. Like they are similar in nature, and they're coming around this idea around this brand, and the brand is connecting them. And so the reason why I'm mentioning this is because most people start a podcast like, "Hey, I'm passionate about this topic and I want to talk about it." I think for the majority of us, unless you are a celebrity, that is not a good strategy. I
Hmm.
think the strategy is who's the people I feel a burden to reach, and what's an idea that we can encompass and come around. And part of that is like, hey, here's who we are, here's who we're not, here's our common enemy, and then here's what we're moving towards. When I consult people with podcasts, I usually say, what's the journey you're taking someone on? If someone were to listen to your podcast once a week for a year, what should their life look like after that year? And if you don't have a roadmap plan for that, uh, and it could just be entertainment, and that's fine. There's tons of podcasts that are just funny entertainment. I love them. I enjoy them. But if you're trying to make it a podcast that, has impact, you're wanting to do events from it or build an actual business from it, it's got to be around a centralized idea. So for us, the centralized idea was building business God's way, a different way. And the whole notion was the enemy was, okay, the world's way. So there are people that like, hey, they don't want to build just the way they've been taught or the world's way because they've seen the negative results. They want to build God's way. So, hey, this is a community and this is conversations around this. And so you're attracting your audience based off of, hey, here's what we're all coming around. For some people, it's health. I have a great friend. He has a phenomenal podcast, and it's all around like wholeness and mental health and physical health. And so he attracts the people who are leaning towards that's something they're wanting to grow in. And so, but it's got to be around an idea. I think again, for the majority of us that are not celebrities, that may be not well known, that's what's going to attract someone of like, man, it's again, same thing with Tesla. It's like I just want to be amongst people. Like I want to be in a tribe. Seth Godin talks about tribes of like, I want to be in this tribe of people who we think the same and we're talking around the same language. And that's really what it is. Uh, there's a really a hierarchy of humanity that we want belonging, right? In our core is, outside of the necessities of food and shelter and clothing, we want to belong. And so your podcast is a place where people can belong. And so the first thing I did, probably for the first 3 months, I worked on the elevator pitch because I couldn't stand when people were like, "Oh, you have a podcast? What's it about?" And it took them like 2 minutes to talk about it.
Right.
And honestly, I still didn't know. So I wanted to get it to a point where like in one sentence, in 5 seconds, I could tell exactly someone what it is, who's it for, and the mission. And so that took a few months to dial in. And then we built out like our value statements and kind of our core pillars from that. And so I spent a lot of time on that. And honestly, we haven't deviated from it. And I think that's super huge because a lot of people are going to try to tell you how you should do your show, or you're going to get this comparison thing of like, oh, maybe it should be like this. Like, you got to have something that you're standing for. Yeah, the method can change, but the mission should never change. And so I worked on the elevator pitch, and I worked on like, okay, how are we going to help grow people? And we started ideating, and events was on that list. And I think we knew at some point we would do a membership, and like now we're doing it. But like we mapped out not just how can we make money, we mapped out the journey that we wanted to take people on so that they can be developed. And that journey just ends up being something that we can monetize. And so hopefully that helps. But
Yeah, totally.
that for sure I did off the jump, and that helped me. And then honestly, just very practically, like I set a deadline. Like when it was time to go, I was like, hey, we have to launch February 7th. And so I gave myself only a month. Like you will get done something in the time that you give yourself. And so I got it done. I had some relationships like where I could get a website done and different other stuff. We filmed like 4 or 5 episodes and we just cranked. And so, um, and then I reached into my network and all that different stuff. But again, you're bringing people around a centralized idea. And I'll tell you this, the clear, one of the things we teach a lot is clarity breeds momentum. The clearer that you can have your mission and your vision. I was able to get guests that honestly I had no business getting as a very young podcast that like no one knew about, but because my mission was clear, and they could see the impact that we are going to have, and then there's practicals like we had good production quality, like that matters now. Like you can't just be like skimping on that. Like you need to have good quality, but because I had those things, uh, people were like, "Yeah, I'll take a shot on that," and now I've had a lot of return guests of people who are doing 7, 8 figures. We had the CEO of Bluebell Ice Cream; they do 600 million a year.
Crazy.
We had the producer of The Chosen. We had all these, I mean, tech giants that raised 40 million in venture. We've had all these different guests, um, and it wasn't like we had a ton to offer them, but they could come around our mission. Like every time I was talking to them, like, man, I love your mission. I love what you're about. And it's like they loved what we were about because it was clear and we repeated it often.
Mhm.
And so I would spend a ton of time on the fourth in the beginning of clarifying that mission. And then whenever you launch, don't deviate from it. So
Yeah.
hopefully that helps.
Now that's good. That's helpful because I think a lot of creatives again we spend time on the creative aspect of it. Like what should we
Mhm.
sound like? What should the colors
The
be? The
logos,
logo, the
the set.
website, the set,
Uh-huh.
all that types of stuff. And it's like just go. Things
Yeah,
things might change, but have the same core idea. And for me, it was always creative entrepreneurs. That's how I started. Is like I saw that there was a hole when it comes to like business and creatives. It doesn't translate sometimes. It's like you're either like creative, and you don't worry about the business, And so my thing was to bridge the gap, and let's talk creative things, but let's talk business, and let's use video to build that brand.
I
And so
love that.
that was the whole idea, and it's been the same. Like I've had different creatives come on. I've had videographers. We've talked about different things like that you need for your podcast, all that types of stuff. And it's been great. And I took a little break because I needed to take a break. Rest is a real thing,
Yes, it is.
you know. And now we're back on 2025. Let's go. I mean
I love it.
2026.
I'm about to
Sorry.
say 2026. Yeah, yeah. I know. We don't even realize it. Yeah.
Right. 2026. Let's go. So podcast community. I'm going to use myself. I want you to use me as an example, right? So you
Okay.
built your community
Hmm.
for your podcast. Now, me, as someone that wants to reach creatives and using a podcast to almost do that and you build a brand, Instagram, all that type of stuff. How should I go about building a community for creatives?
Mm. Well, one, I think if I were to tell you something that I would tell myself, uh, it's much simpler than you think. You already are attracting those type of people. Um, I would just develop. Well, um, one of the things that I did was like, I mean, research. Like, I took the creative. I would take a creative out to coffee and maybe take like 5 or 10 of them and just be like, hey, like they're the ideal person that you would want in your community, and just study them and just ask them questions like, what hangups do you have around creative? What are you looking to grow in? What 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 tutorials are you looking at? Like, what would make your life easier if there was a community for creatives? What would, and like literally build it. I'm pretty sure Levi Lesko, who he has a very large church out in Montana. I'm almost positive the way they started the church, they literally like knocked door to door, was like, "Hey, if you had a perfect church, what would that church be?" And they
Mm.
literally like, now I'm not advocating that this is the best way to start a church, but it worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally like they built that. They was just like, okay, like we're gonna make it at this time because people said in this neighborhood that that time works best for them, and so like there's a lot of guesswork you could take out of it. But honestly, like what I wish I knew, like I think I thought that education is what people are hungry for.
Mm.
Yes and no. We are information loaded. We are deficient in wisdom
Mm,
and we are deficient in community.
mm,
And if COVID taught us anything, like there is a need for community. And so I'm saying that because, and if anybody wants to start a community from their podcast, what people are paying for or what people are coming for is access. Like literally, people would come like, man, I just wanted to be around you, and I wanted to be other around people like you because I've been following your podcast for a year or 2 years. And so there are already people who are, you know, in the same stage of life or have the same interests that they're just looking for other people who also have similar interests and they're paying for that access and they just of course like education is needed and of
mhm.
course content is needed but that's not why they're like if you really ask them that's not why they're coming like otherwise you just do it on your own time. But there's something about, oh man, I can be in a community. I can ask questions. Like, I can ask, I can want like, man, like, how are you doing this? How you do? And I have a direct access to you or other people in the community. Like, that's what people are. So I think just knowing like why people are actually joining it is helpful. And honestly, it helps you to not overthink it, you know? Obviously have some good systems in place, right? Uh, keep it simple. Like we do 2 calls a week, and even that, like we really could just do one, but we do 2 calls a week, and we just keep it super simple. Like uh, it's very repetitive. We have a theme for each call, and we record all of them, and we put it in the library, and then like so they have access to it. Like it's super simple. Now we're gonna add some more stuff later, but for the first, half of the year, we kept it stupid simple. Something that like we could build systems around, and it could be very repeatable. And so,
Good.
people like consistency. People don't like when it's like, okay, so when are we meeting again? There's a little stuff like that, but man, you have it again. Like I think as long as that mission is clear and you're like, hey, here's where we're gathering around this mission, I think you would have no problem building a
Yeah,
community.
and that's true. I'm a part of Omar Altacore's
Yeah, yeah,
coaching
yeah.
program, and the reason I joined wasn't because I needed more information.
Yeah, yeah.
It was to be around those people. Hear the stories, hear the things that they're building, and things like that. So, I've as someone that is introverted, I've worked on myself on being able to communicate some of these ideas that are in my head, and like that's what this year is gonna be about. It's like really bringing all those out, you
I
know,
love it.
and like putting that out there, putting myself out there even more than I ever did. When I started, it was like, okay, let's get this jumping, let's get this going, let's put out some ideas of who I am out there that people didn't know about, and now there's even a higher call into it because let me ask you this, if you agree with this sentiment and this statement that people say that business is actually a spiritual activity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
In what way would you say so? Let's break it down a little bit.
I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, even just, uh, I often find, even, I mean, people again who maybe don't share my same faith, um, they're doing personal development, they're doing breath work, they're doing meditation. Heck, some of them are doing like they're hypnotizing themselves because they're realizing like like literally I get ads for like we'll hypnotize you for success. I'm like, what? This is ridiculous.
That's wild.
But it's because business is mostly a mental game. Like and it's really spiritual. It's really spiritual, but it's mostly mental of like um, what caps you is typically your own thinking and your own capacity that you have convinced yourself of how much you're able to make, what you're capable of doing, um, and just honestly, like the tenacity to take rejection and keep going. Like I had someone on my show. His name's Brady Shear. He runs a
It's wild.
multiple
Brady.
companies. Yeah,
Watch him for
incredible.
years.
Yeah, legend in the church communication space, runs several seven-figure businesses. And he gave probably the best definition I ever heard of entrepreneurship. He said, entrepreneurship is calculated delusion. and it's because it like there is strategy, but it really is delusional. Like there's no guarantees.
Yep.
There's no, and so for those of us who are of faith, that are, believers, um, we have the greatest access of the Holy Spirit
Mm.
and the Word of God as our anchor. And man, I can't tell you the amount of times I've prayed and cried over my business, like, Lord, you got to come through. And it's obviously I'm working, I'm being diligent, but I'm like, hey, you got to help me. Or just the times where I'm like, man, I got hit with another rejection, another rejection. All right, like, God, I trust you. You told me that you got me, you got my back. All right, I'm gonna go again. Like that was the whole tour. Like
Yeah.
getting so many no's of sponsorships. Like I was at my very end, and then that's when God came through. And so I guess I say all that to say, um, it is because a lot of it is just there are a lot of people who are very, very smart that I know that honestly have not done well in business because it has to do with fortitude more than just aptitude. Like it's not just uh yes, like you gotta have brilliance, you gotta be proficient in your gift, but you can have all of that, but if you don't have the stamina and the resilience, but for me that comes from my spiritual sense. That comes from me trusting in God. That comes from me praying and reading in my word. Like that's where I draw it from. I don't draw it from myself because
Yeah.
I'm an empty well. Like
Mm.
I'm a limited resource. But in prayer and reading my word, I get to tap into an unlimited resource. He has no limit. He has no capacity, right?
Yeah.
Like his capacity is unlimited. And so for me, it absolutely is spiritual. You can't convince me otherwise. I've done it long enough where I'm like, nah, I ain't doing this without him.
Right, right. Not at all. It actually grows your faith, like you
Oh
said, in
yes.
times where you're like, oh man, I need this. Like, help me, Lord. Help me.
Yep.
You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And like I'll share this briefly. I haven't really shared this publicly yet, but I went through, some health challenges recently. And I had to sit down, God sat me down for a month, did nothing, you know, and we're still sustained, that's by his grace, not, we last year I worked myself heavy, what I mean, like sleeping maybe 4 or 5 hours a night, not getting enough rest. And the last month of this year, God was like, well, you're gonna take some time off, like obviously it wasn't anything that he brought my way. It was obviously something that I did to myself, but he also used this for his good, for me to
Yes.
rest and take a break. And so with me resting, did nothing, but we're able to sustain our lives. And that's by his grace and his goodness, allowing us to continue to pay the bills and do the things that we have to do.
Yeah.
And so, like, running this race of life is like, something that you said, you want to do this for generations, for years to come. You
Yes.
want to be able to sustain your business. You don't want to do this for 2 years and then it's like, all right, we got to pack up, or 5 years and it's done. It's like, I want to be able to leave a legacy for my kids. For them,
Come
like they
on.
come into this room, they sit on those chairs, they pull the mic, they're like, we're shooting a podcast,
I love it.
and they're like
That's
4 and 2. And it's just interesting to see like they're at that age already and seeing the things that I do, they want to emulate. And that's the same thing as our Father in heaven is like we see the things that he does and we want to be able to do that. And I'm reminded by, the story in Matthew 26 of, the people, the story of the talents,
Yeah.
giving five, giving two, giving one, and the one with five doubled, the one with two doubled, the one with one hit it on the ground and did nothing
Yep.
with it. And it's like, what are you gonna do with what God has given you? What are you gonna build? What do I was listening to Manny Orengo today, this morning, and one of the things that he
My
said,
guy.
yeah, I'm still, trekking through the 1 year, reading the Bible in a year with him, and I started later in the year last year, so I'm still going through it. But one of the things he said was the creativity to preach. There were prophets, Amos, Jonah, Isaiah, all those prophets in the Old Testament. If they decided to tell the prophecy in the way they heard it, everyone would look the same. But because they had freedom and creativity, their prophecies and the way that they actually spoke is different. And so, do not negate the creativity that God has given you in how to express something in the words He has told you to express, and the way. And that's what makes us individual. That's what makes us the types of people that, if someone is doing exactly the same thing that we're doing, it could look different because God has put
Mm,
something within us and given us experiences that are, about us, you know, before
yes.
we were born, it need us, like we were formed to do something specific. And
Yes.
everyone, all 7, 8 billion of people that are on this earth were born to do something specific, and it looks different. Even if it seems the same, you're gonna carry it differently. And so, anyone listening to this, it's like, if there is no competition at all. There is no competition. Learn from people that are close to you, people that are far from you. You could always learn lessons from those types of people, and just build what God has called you to build, in His way.
Amen.
And so, before we end out, I want to, besides your faith and everything God has given you, what is even one, two, three strategies that you use specifically to build your business God's way?
Mm, man, this is some heavy questions. I gotta think. Uh, well, I think for us, um, at Faith Hustle, I I don't know if it's a one, two, three step strategy. I know for me, one thing I had to learn, uh, and it came from a place with God. Um, I had to get really clear and learn how to recognize and appreciate the gift that God gave me, of my gifts. And so for me, I realized really quickly I'm not a teacher. Like that's not my calling. My I tried doing courses, I tried doing webinars, and I was like, I'm not good at this, and I don't like it. Like I'm not a coach by nature. Not saying I couldn't coach, and I've done consulting for years, and but it doesn't come naturally to me. And I think, I'll be 30 this year, and I think there's parts of me that I was like, man, as I enter into my 30s, and as I look at, okay, what's the business, the organization that I desire to build, I'm like, I want to build around my gifts. Funny you talk about Manny Rango. I've had him on my show, and he actually talked about this of like really his whole business, his whole career and ministry. He really only mastered one thing, and he talked about like we have a deficiency of the concept of mastery. We want to be proficient in all things or be a jack of all trades. Um, but he was like, man, I only learned to master one thing, which was the Bible. And he got a doctorate. He went to school. He got his dissertation, all this different stuff. And so he was like, so he started a course company to teach people how to read the Bible. He wrote books off of his dissertations, which was a study of the Bible. He has a podcast that's got millions of downloads about the study of the Bible. Like he was like, I just didn't do anything I'm not good at. And that conversation and others like it made me think like, man, what if, you spend, at least I think you spend your 20s kind of figuring out like, what is my gift? What am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? What makes me come alive? I'm grateful that in my late 20s, I discovered it.
Mm-hmm.
I discovered that my real gift is people. My real gift is connection, building bridges, building community. And my gift is encouraging people, like edifying. That's like my natural gift. So I was like, well, what if I could build a business? And then generosity, I would say. So I'm like, okay, those seem random. How can I build a business around that? How can I build a system around that? And so that's what Faith Hustle has become. Like we have conversations where we encourage and edify people. We do our events where we're bringing community and connection to people, and then we translate that into an online venue, a space where we're encouraging people weekly and connecting them together along with other high profile, net worth individuals that are believers. Like, I'm not doing anything that's not my gift. I'm staying in my lane. Like, of course, there's other skills that we've had to learn and like strategies that we're gonna be tapping into this year. We're doing very strategic partnerships that where there's a win-win on both sides, and we're doing events together and doing even within our network, we're looking at building partnerships together with different coaching companies and different things like that. But then we're also, uh, you know, we're um, doing ads, and we're doing some other things to kind of help bring traffic. But the core of it, like the core thing that we're delivering, is my gift. And I just think that, and not everyone has the luxury of doing that, but I would say we all have a choice. And I was just like, man, I want to be the best Mukwenda I can. I will never be Akin. I can't be you. I can't think like you. I can't be like Omar. I can't be like so and so.
Right.
We can get inspiration from them, but at
Right.
some point, it's like
You
I
gotta
got to
be
be
you. Yeah.
who God made me to be, and that is enough. And honestly, what I did was within me finding out who I am, I just looked for models that were similar. So like I looked at School of Hard Knocks. I'm like, oh man, this is a model that I think is similar to what I'm trying to build. And I looked at some other ones. I'm like, yeah, this is similar to what I'm trying to build. And so, but I did it from a standpoint of me not trying to see, oh, what's working here, what's working there. It's like what's working in relation to me knowing my gift. And I just think that that's super critical for us as creatives, entrepreneurs, like really know like the core of your gift. Like even if you're a videographer or you're a photographer, yeah, that's a skill, but what's your gift?
Mm-hmm.
And the gift is like it's usually another layer down.
Mm-hmm.
It's another layer down. Um, some people have a gift to teach. Some people have a gift to encourage. Some people have a gift of hospitality. Some people have a gift uh, to coach and to train. Some people have a gift. You know what I mean? Like we all have different gifts, and so you gotta when you find that you'll do one more fulfilling work, and then two is like it's gonna like when I do events. Yeah, it's a lot of work. I know you're mentioning before, like man, it feels like a headache. Honestly, it's the most natural thing that comes to me. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but like I'm the most alive when I do
Yeah.
events.
Yeah.
I'm the most alive when I'm doing. We had a call this morning, our online community. Man, that was like drinking coffee. Like I come alive doing it. For some people, like them coming alive is accounting. That does not make me come alive. I'll tell you that right now. Or bookkeeping. That makes me want to fall asleep. Like, but like for some people, that makes them come alive. Like, what makes you come alive?
That's good.
And just focus on that.
That's good. That's real good, bro. I the only class I failed in college was accounting. I got a D. I was like, dang,
Dang.
you know. But
But
no, I resonate with that because I had to do the same thing. I had to find out what I was good at. I've had many talents and skills from music. You also play drums. I'm a drummer.
yep, let's
Music,
go.
dance, videography, photography, website design. Audio stuff, all that types of stuff that comes with creativity. But I found out that I love teaching. And
I love that.
I was a creative director for 6 years, and one of the things was like helping people do what they were called to do. Like if there was anyone that really wanted to work and get in that position, I do whatever I can to get them there. And there were times I had people, one of my guys, he works with me in my business now, but he also worked with me at the church. And we'll be on the phone till like 2 in the morning, and I'm like helping him walk through stuff. And I didn't feel tired. I felt joyous doing that, you know? And that's one
I
thing
love it.
that I want to help other people discover. As creatives, you may have multiple skills and talents, and you're trying to figure out like which one do I use, right now. That was actually one something that my pastor, current pastor, prophesied over me about 13, 15 years ago. You know, it was like, hey, you're good at multiple things and God is going to use you to do all of them. And I've done all of them, you know, but then it came to a point where like, okay, I'm building a business, but what is that one thing? And I had to like really just sit down and think, you know, even when I'm on set and I bring people along that, you know, are not, you know, at that level that I need them to be, and I pull them up and say, hey, come film, you know, with me,
Yeah,
and I teach them, and I love that part, and that's, I think, one of one of the best skills that I have. I love teaching, and
I love it.
yeah, that's me. So that's great. Like, if you're listening to this podcast right now, if there is that one thing that you need to figure out about yourself, is figure out the thing that you're good at, the best at, you know. And obviously there's gonna
What
be
you do
skills.
naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's gonna be skills and talents built around that, and use all those things, you know, to your betterment and to develop other people. So yeah. Appreciate
I
you
love it,
for coming on, bro. Thank you so much. This has been
man.
a rich conversation.
Dude, this was such an honor, man, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for this, and I'm excited to see you start that community, bro.
Yes, sir.
And I'll be the first to join.
Hey, let's do it. If there was one thing you wanted to leave people with before you end out, what would that be?
One thing I would leave is, uh, I mean, build His way. I mean, it's worth it. Um, Trusting God is worth it. Um, and one thing I've just been reflecting on is like the faithfulness of God. When you sow good seed, He's faithful,
Yeah.
and so um, just trust. It may feel hard, but you know, it talks about narrow is the path to life. You know, like you're going the right way, and don't just look for external signs of it. Like follow His voice. If Noah was just looking for external signs, he would have stopped at year one.
Mm,
But he built the ark for 100 years because he was following God's voice. And so, just trust God, and it always pays off when you do. And my mom used to say this: someone is always waiting on the other side of your obedience,
that's
the other
good.
side of your yes. And so, do it God's way, obey what He says, because someone's waiting for you.
That's good, bro. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll do this part 2.
Would love to,
All
man.
right. Sounds
Anytime.
good. Appreciate you.